Amanda here, and welcome to Great Beer Adventure, the super quick brewery bio edition. Today we head over to D.L. Geary Brewing Company in Portland, Maine. So many of our guests reference Geary's as part of their first beer memory that I just needed to sit down with the man himself to discover his first beer memory.
Things like Crofts, Dawson, Ballantine, they were ales and they had hops, which is something that the mainstream beers didn't have much of. And my father liked his hops. And he, they were just little sips. And I didn't know what that flavor was, and neither did he. Yeah. He just knew he liked it. And now hops dominate the craft beer scene. I mean, more than dominate. They overwhelm the craft beer scene. There's days when they're Narragansett, Ballantine. Of course, there were mainstream beers as well. But that was my first beer memory. And my first beer serious memory of getting interested in beer came about when $3 Dewey's opened, and Alan Eames, who called himself the Beer King, was an innovator and a visionary. He didn't sell Budweiser or Miller. He didn't even sell Heineken. His draft beers were pretty much English, with the exception of Guinness and a couple of others. But he's the one that got me interested in various styles of beer. He also introduced me to the man that would begin me on my journey for a brewing career, Peter Maxwell Stewart, the Laird of Quare. And he had a brewery in Scotland in his castle. He was exporting to this country. Alan Eames was the importer, and that's how I met him. And Peter suggested to me, back in the early 80s, he said, if you ever want to consider starting a small commercial brewery, come to Scotland and I'll start you on your journey. 2 years later, I did. And it's the first place I brewed was in a 350-year-old all-wooden vessel brewery beneath the chapel in a castle in Scotland.
That's pretty epic.
Yeah. Well, I had to pinch myself quite a bit. I was there for a month and learned to brew fearlessly because they were all wooden vessels, stone floor. There was nothing, of course we had electricity with pumps and that sort of thing, but the rest of it was all 350-year-old process, and the beer was wonderful. So that's where I learned the tradition, the history, the culture of brewing that really changed the way I felt about beer, and it's changed the way I think about beer still. It still is an enormously rich history. Every culture on Earth has some sort of brewing history, and it's what we do as a species. We ferment, and it's always been part of the human condition, and that makes it a very, very special profession.
With my love for all things fairy tale, that sounds super magical. When I decide to become a brewer, I will settle for nothing less than perfecting my skills in a castle. With as much history as he has here in Maine, I wanted to know how he got his start.
Well, one of the places I brewed was in the south of England, at the Ringwood Brewery. Peter Austin also had a business of designing and fabricating small breweries. And since I worked there and brewed there so much, it seemed like a logical fit that I would hire Peter to design and fabricate the small brewery. And when I came back, I wrote a business plan, raised money, then contacted him, and I said, let's go. Let's do it. So several months later, it arrived by a container, and it was delivered to this property, and we set it up, and we still use that brewery. That was a 24-barrel brewery. And then we had a 50-barrel brewery fabricated using the same design. So we have a 24 and a 50 now that look identical. And it doesn't look like anybody else's brewery in the world except Peter Austin Breweries. The Gritty's, it's the same design. In fact, they learned here. They worked here prior to opening their brew pub. So we're very close. We're very close to them, and so it's a wonderful system. People come here on tours and they say, "I've never seen a brewery that looks anything like this." Well, there's a reason for that, and that's because in 1985 there were no brewery stores to go to like there are now. Everybody's brewery looks just about the same because they go online or they hire somebody. Okay, here's your fermenter. They all look alike. These are your conditioning tanks. They all look alike. These are your kettles. They're all steam jacketed. Ours is totally different. And people, because we designed and fabricated this thing to our own specifications, there were no places you could buy stuff at this scale back then. Now there are lots. There are a couple in Portland, and even there's well, when we started, there were probably 24 craft breweries in the United States, and now there are almost 4,000. And so there's a huge market for stainless steel vessels. So that's what we do.
With all of the beers DL has made, I wanted to know his favorite.
My go-to is the Pale Ale. It's our flagship. It's our biggest seller. But I drink them all from time to time. But what I like about the Pale Ale is that it's classic English, well-balanced, relatively low in alcohol. It's only 4.7%. So it's not quite a session beer, but it's got less alcohol than a Budweiser. And it's beautifully balanced. It's a nice hop character, nice firm body. It's a beautiful beer.
And what should you get this weekend?
Whatever they can find is the answer to that. You know, our distribution is in those states, but you really have to search for it. Now that there are so many breweries, and it used to be that we would do quite well in those states, but now every state has 50, 100, 150, 200 breweries. And so these distributors don't need to go very far afield to get a beer that they can sell. So if these people, if people want to call us, say, you know, I heard Amanda's podcast and I would really like to try it, the short answer is, well, you have to come to Portland, Maine to get it. But the other thing is that, you know, we'll give you the name of our distributor in that state, and you can call them and say, can you tell us yes or no, or do you even have it anymore?
Thank you so much to DL for sitting down with me and sharing such amazing stories. Head over to our show notes, greatbeeradventure.com/021, to see Dano's fantastic analogy of Geary's and to find some fun links. This will be our last super quick brewery bio until the new year. We have some great specials coming up and have a fun series we'll be doing right off the bat in 2016. But there is way too much between now and then to discuss that just yet. Join us next week for an inside look at expanding a brewery. The music in today's episode is brought to you by Old Etc. To learn more about them, head on over to greatbeeradventure.com/music. We have new things coming your way every Friday, and we can't wait to share them with you. Today's episode was edited, produced, and a lot by me, Amanda. Thanks for joining us. Go subscribe, and we will see you next time. Cheers! Want to know more? Be sure to find us on Twitter and Instagram at Great Beer Women. Make sure you head on over to greatbeeradventure.com/subscribe to subscribe. That way, you'll be the first to know when a new episode goes live. We would love it if you left a rating and review on your favorite podcatcher. Let's spread the word and get more people knowing about beer in the great state of Maine. Great Beer Adventure is part of Portland Roots Media.